Hello and welcome to the Satluj Podcast. Today we welcome back a regular guest to our show, Dr. Bakhshish Singh Sandhu, MD. Dr. Sandhu is a highly experienced and board-certified internal medicine doctor. He's also a highly respected and active campaigner for both Sikh rights and the nation of Khalistan. As such, he's the current president of the Council of Khalistan, but he's also the president of Khalistan Food for All and also the co-founder of Sikhs for Justice, having been with the organisation since 2007. And even amongst this enormous list of achievements, he still has time to author the book Punjab, A Tale of State Terrorism, Persecution, Economicide and Genocide. Dr. Sandhu, welcome and thank you for joining us once again today.
Angus, thank you very much for having me on your program.
Pleasure as always. Now, Dr. Sandhu, Sunday is India Republic Day, the day when the nation celebrates becoming a republic and, of course, adopting its constitution back in 1950. However, as it's widely known, the Sikh community didn't sign up to this constitution after partition, recognising it as a betrayal of everything that they'd fought for and indeed been promised. Now, this constitution remains even today the framework under which the community continues to be systematically persecuted. And it's this area that I'd like to focus on in our discussion today. So to start with, can we just turn the clock back to 1947 and could you please give us just a little more historical context of the roots of the problems that endure even today?
Okay, prior to the 1947 independence of India, the Sikhs were made promises, all sorts of equality, an autonomous state of Punjab in the northwest of India, and religious freedom. However, immediately after 1947, the things turned 180 degrees. And the constitution that was brought into practice was totally opposite to what was promised to the Sikhs. That's why the Constituent Assembly of the Constitution, the Sikhs did not sign any of the document related to the Constitution. So here, how I express the Indian Constitution. See, the Indian Constitution, number one, does not give equal right to Sikhs. It doesn't recognize Sikhism as a stand-alone religion. Number two is that Indian Constitution is such that the rights that are given to ordinary Indians, automatically the Sikhs have to launch agitations to obtain that rights. The third thing is the Indian Constitution is inherently unconstitutional. Why? Because Indian Constitution is based on a religious premises. It's based on Hinduism and other religions and how the other religions will be treated as belonging to or a part of Hindu religion. So that's why if a constitution of a country is based on protecting one religious community, it is unconstitutional. That's why I say that Indian Constitution is inherently unconstitutional. It's not based on human equality.
So before we sort of carve into that sort of piece by piece, let's look at various aspects of this leading up to this sort of constitutional issue. And of course, it's not just written into the Constitution, some of these problems, as you ironically say, the Constitution itself is unconstitutional. It's also happened geographically as well, because as I say, we'll come on to the actual elements of the Constitution itself that have been used and abused to persecute the community. But there is also a geographical issue here, and this is where India has basically carved out areas of the Punjab. We know that the Punjab has been split at least twice since partition, the original partition in 1947. Could you talk through how India started carving out parts of the Punjab?
Starting in 1947, India became an independent country, and somehow the Indian Punjab, the people of Punjab at that time decided to go with India based on certain promises that we discussed. However, immediately after 1947, India started to carve out areas out of Punjab and they created a province of Himachal Pradesh. So we think that that was unconstitutional as well. The Indian Constitution has a clause that they can break up a state or carve out a state, give parts of one state to the others. But none of the other countries have such clauses, or they can break up a state or distribute the state among other states. That's not constitutional. It should be done by referendum. If India has done referendum to attach Junagadh to itself, then why India started breaking up Punjab, and starting in 1948 and then in 1966, when Punjabi Suba was created, it was left as a defunct state, because all the controls of administrative purposes, it was basically a state under the Indian government and Indian system of government, and they have a governor in Punjab who overrules everything. Punjab government is subject to the ruling of Indian government through establishment of governor of Punjab. That's how India intervenes in the internal affairs of country like Punjab.
So, if we turn to the Constitution itself, then let's move again to the actual contents of the Constitution, notwithstanding the geographical issues of trying to essentially dilute Punjab physically. Of course, they also try to dilute the religion of Sikhi, likewise, and they did this in the Constitution and the Constitution was fundamentally supposed to be secular. India is supposed to be a secular nation. But religion does enter the wording in the Constitution on a regular basis. But one of the reasons I understand that the Sikhs at the time, the Sikh representatives from the community, did not sign up to the Constitution was that because the Constitution did not recognise Sikhi as an independent, separate religion. Could you elaborate on that?
See, starting from the time of Guru Nanak, Sikh religion has been noted to be a stand-alone, independent religion with a known founder, with holy scripture written by the forefathers of the Sikh Gurus. So Indian Constitution started saying that explanation to the Section 2 will be construed as Sikhs belonging to Hindu system. So that was alone a single thing, that the Sikhs are grouped together as belonging to the Hindu religion. And that has serious repercussions. Number one, that means the Hindu personal law applies to Sikhs. While the Sikhs don't want to be associated with respect to their religion with any other religion, because the Sikh religion, as I said, is a stand-alone, complete religion, and the Indian Constitution says the Sikhs will be treated as Hindus. As a result of that, Hindu personal law, marriage ceremony. So when a Sikh couple gets married, they get a marriage certificate stating that the marriage ceremony took place according to Hindu rituals. That's outrageous. How can any constitution say that the people belonging to one religion are being married according to the rituals of another religion? That's total injustice against Sikhs. And then the adoption of, let's say, if you want to adopt some children, transfer of property, lot of other laws, the Sikhs are basically forced to follow it. That's why it's not for the Sikhs. And the Indian Constitution calls itself secular, but what is secularism in Indian Constitution? It's not a secular constitution. And the second thing is, even if Constitution may have some articles which should be applied to all the people, but the Indian government's will does not exist. There's no will to enforce the Indian Constitution. Always, Indian Constitution has stood against the Sikhs. That is on the wrong side of the law. The Indian Constitution stands on the wrong side of the law with the Indian government, and Indian Constitution stands against the Sikhs or Sikh values. That's why the Constituent Assembly members of Sikh religion did not sign the constitution.
So the ruling elite of India, essentially the upper caste Brahmins, have been often pointed to as the architects of this constitution. And of course, since then, they have used every element of this constitution to persecute and oppress the Sikh community. And of course, to persecute and destroy a community always brings about cultural attacks, attacking the culture from every angle. And of course, one of the foundational elements of a culture is its language. And it's very clear that there have been a lot of attacks and targeted oppression against the Punjabi language. I guess that is still going on. It's certainly been going on since 1947. It does appear to still be going on even today.
See, under the Reorganization Act of States of 1956, the states were reorganized based on the language. However, at that time, Jawaharlal Nehru and the Indian National Congress, they did not want to create a Punjab state. So they found a way. They say that Punjabi is not the official language of Punjab. And they say, okay, the Punjab is a bilingual state, means they took the underpinning of formation of state. So the states were organized depending upon the language people spoke, and the capital of that state was given to the state it belonged to. However, in the case of Punjab, the capital of Punjab was not given to Punjab, it was made into a union territory. In 1966, 44,000 square kilometers of area was taken out of Punjab and given to other areas, and created a new state of Haryana and gave some area to Himachal. This is important to understand that none of these states have ever asked. They had never asked for the statehood. And they took the area out of Punjab. It's also important to know that during 98 years of British occupation of Punjab, they did not touch the Punjab territory. While India, within a year of its independence, started carving areas out of Punjab. That's why we're saying that the Indian constitution does not protect Sikhs. And India denies Sikhs any constitutional right, even if that exists in paper. So this is the state of affairs.
Now, one of the methods that the Indian government, which actually reflects, I would say, fairly typically reflects those methods of any totalitarian state, is to ensure that the voice of a people, the democratic voice of any community, is suppressed, that they don't have the opportunity to voice their opinions and influence political agenda or policies. And there has been this accusation that there has been a very deliberate policy on India's part to dilute and fragment and destroy and erode the political voice of the Punjab and by extension the Sikh community. Is that something that you believe is a deliberate agenda? Are you seeing that? Do you think the Sikh voice politically has been stifled?
See, India wants to control Punjab. Therefore, any voices that the Sikhs or the people of Punjab have put forward that they want, let's say, economical freedom. They want political freedom. So India denies people of Punjab, particularly the Sikhs, the political freedom, religious freedom, and right to free speech. Right to free speech, because if Sikhs say, okay, we want Punjabi Suba, I'm going back to 1955, and they hold agitations, and Indian police and Indian paramilitary forces attack the people who are demanding their rights peacefully carrying out an agitation. But they are fired upon and 200 Sikhs are killed. So India does not like the Sikhs to ask their rights. Another, talking about the religious freedom. So India is violating in every way the Sikhs' religious freedom. Number one, the Indian government at will controls the Gurdwaras, has infiltrated into the administrations and attacked Golden Temple Amritsar in 1984 in the month of June. This attack on the Gurdwara, Harmandir Sahib, was invasion of not only the Gurdwara, but invasion on the rights of Sikhs and attack on the Sikh psyche. then Indian government also does not afford Sikhs their religious freedom, that if a Sikh wears kirpan, it's written in the Indian constitution that Sikhs are allowed to wear kirpan or a sword, but the people in Indian administration or any like airport or anywhere else, they are asked to take off their kirpan. Even the kada, let's say the kada is a Sikh symbol or Sikh identity, and they say, oh, some children cannot go to take exam, they have to take their kada off. So that is attack on Sikh religion. Not allowing kirpan to get on the plane in India is a violation of Indian constitution, but they don't care. And then they also interfere by interfering in the daily Sikh prayer. In the daily Sikh prayer, it says, Raj karega Khalsa, aki reh na koi. Means the Khalsa shall rule and nobody will be defiant. But what has India done? They have tried to take these lines out of Sikh daily prayer. That's unconstitutional. That's violation of free speech. That's how Indian constitution does not protect any of the rights of Sikhs and inherently denies rights to Sikhs. They belong to them by denying their religion. So India basically does not allow Sikhs right to free speech, right to practice their religion as it should be allowed.
So under any normal democracy, as we understand a democracy, it is the absolute fundamental right of every individual to have a voice to change policy. If they feel they're being persecuted by a government or they feel the government is going in the wrong direction, they have that fundamental democratic right to voice their opinion. And it would appear then that this, going back historically even, and you mentioned 1984, this is a situation where Bhindranwale and others gathered together, the Sikh community, and said, look, you are not, this was to the Indira Gandhi governments of the time, you are not respecting our basic fundamental human rights. And those rights range from agricultural rights, riparian rights, etc., etc. At that specific time, they weren't about an independent homeland. It was just asking for the basic human rights that they were being denied. And yet we know what happened in 1984, the attack, as you referred to, on the Ahmadiyya Sahib. But of course this has continued, and now we fast forward to the present day and we have people like Amritpal Singh residing in Dibrugarh jail under some fairly nefarious legislation, held under questionable legality, because he dared try to ask for his basic fundamental democratic right. So let's move on then to this discussion about Khalistan, which has essentially evolved out of this very persecution of the democratic voice of the Punjab. Are you finding, and do you believe, that the Indian government is very deliberately following an agenda to prevent a referendum, the democratic voice of the Punjab population?
Absolutely. India does not want the people of Punjab to hold a referendum. So why is that? So India does not afford the same rights to Sikhs and people of Punjab that it gives to other people. If India held the referendum in Junagadh in 1948, early like February, and they attached Junagadh to India itself, that same right that India does not want to give to the Sikhs. Now let's talk about how the India has used referendum. That's a very good topic that you have brought up. So there was a referendum in Assam. There's an area, Sylhet. The Sylhet was predominantly a Muslim area. So what at that time, the Hindu majority living in that area, they wanted to shunt out Sylhet out of that state because they want to not have any political opposition. So as a result of that, there was a referendum in which the Sylhet was taken out of the Assam, thus violating the rights of the people. So that referendum was done to get rid of some people who belong to other religions. Is that what the constitution is supposed to be? But at that time, it was 1947. The Indian constitution was not into effect at that time. However, let's go back to Pondicherry. Pondicherry referendum happened in about like 1960s. So Pondicherry referendum was decided because India wanted to attach Pondicherry, which was a French colony, and they held a referendum, and the assembly members voted in favor of, let's say, adding Pondicherry to India. So India has done referendums even after the 1947. And then in Sikkim, the referendum happened. That was basically, you can say, forced into holding a referendum. Indian army went up, they occupied the royal place, and then the referendum was held, which people didn't like. People opposed, and even Prime Minister Morarji Desai was not happy with that. So in Sikkim, India forced a referendum to attach the Sikkim to India. That was 1975. So let's say when the Punjab referendum comes, India says, okay, Indian constitution is silent on referendums. But Indian constitution is not so silent. How? That the referendum are happening under the Indian constitution. I talked about Sikkim referendum and Junagadh referendum, Pondicherry referendum. So those referendums. Now let's talk about the Goa referendum. See, the Goa referendum was not attaching area, but Goa referendum was the people of Goa wanted to protect their language called Konkani or Konkani. That's the language. So they had the choice to either merge with and their adjoining state Maharashtra, or they basically stay where they are. So they decided to hold a referendum because the pressure was high for them to join Maharashtra, which the people of Goa did not want. So the Goan people decided they will stay in their area, which became a union territory. So this was appealed in the court, and the court decided that they are going to uphold the referendum results of Goa. So Indian constitution has been tested. Under the Indian constitution, referendums have taken place, but India does not want to afford the same rights to people of Punjab and Sikhs which they have given to others. So if India says, look, the constitution is silent, that's invalid because Indian constitution has allowed referendums to happen. So I think the Sikh referendum or Khalistan referendum, Sikhs' right to self-determination is very valid and has created waves all over the world. And the people support our cause. They think that we are on the right track and we are doing peacefully. But India, to stop the Sikh right to self-determination, is carrying out violence. India has killed hundreds of thousands. More than 150,000 Sikhs have been killed. And we can talk about that too. But India does not afford any rights which are due legally to Sikhs.
Yeah, well, I'd like to pursue that specific topic, Dr. Sandhu, and that is the Constitution itself provides a legal framework, a legal platform from which every Indian government, as it arrives, it gives them a legal platform to create laws to push its own agenda. Would you agree then that the Indian Constitution has effectively legally allowed the Indian government to create laws that have justified what happened through the 1980s and 1990s? And by that I'm referring, as you referred to, the extrajudicial killing of a whole generation of young Sikhs during that period. Essentially, that came from the legal capability created by the Constitution. Therefore, the Constitution itself legally allowed the Indian government to murder a whole generation of young Sikhs.
So you're talking about let's say, the Sikh genocide and the aftermath of Indian Army invasion of Golden Temple. So in the latter half of 1984, Indian government created a system called Operation Woodrose. I don't think it's constitutional. I think the Indian government does not care what the constitution says or what is in the constitution when it comes to Sikhs, because what they did was they went at night, plucked young people from the villages. They brought them, they killed them extrajudicially, and there was no records kept. In order to find out the records, how many people were killed, a Sikh activist, Jaswant Singh Khora, made a comprehensive list of thousands of Sikhs who were killed extrajudicially. They were cremated. From the cremation ground records, that how much wood was bought to cremate, as you know, the Sikhs believe in cremation, so their body is basically set ablaze, and the fire is required for that. And depending upon how much fire was sold, he recalculated how many Sikhs have been killed, or Sikh youth have been killed. But the Indian Constitution, where was Indian Constitution? Indian Constitution didn't come, or the Supreme Court didn't come to stop that. When people asked the Supreme Court to stop that, the Indian Supreme Court said, this is not our job. We don't do such things. So the Indian Constitution, whether it says something or doesn't say something, whether allows referendum or doesn't allow referendum, has witnessed the genocide of Sikhs. When there was you can say when the Sikh genocide was going on in November 1984, at the time, Indian Constitution was burning. It had no value. The Indian democracy had died. Because Indian democracy, where was Indian democracy at that time? When the Sikhs were being burnt alive, women were being violently gang raped, the Indian Constitution stood by. The police were standing by, they participated in killing of the Sikhs, and the politicians, religious leaders, all participated in killing of Sikhs. So neither the Indian democracy nor the Indian Constitution stands for Sikhs. It is anti-Sikh, and Indian Constitution must not be followed in Punjab. Indian Constitution is unconstitutional because it does not give people rights and is based on the religious premises of one majority community. That's why it's unconstitutional.
And one thing that has become very noticeable is, of course, the Indian government picks and chooses the constitution to suit its own purposes, and it's quite happy to change the constitution when it suits its own purposes. And for example, I'm looking at Jammu and Kashmir, which constitutionally had special reservations, which of course were effectively torn up by the Indian government and rubber stamped by the Supreme Court. So clearly the Indian government is quite happy to pick and choose the constitution as it sees fit. And if we turn to one final question, Dr. Sandhu, one particular area that really has raised controversy ever since partition, but certainly through the 1970s and actually leading up to the events of 1984. And as was in fact even formed a fundamental part of the Anandpur resolution before those events of 1984, that is of course the riparian rights, the basic human right of Punjab residents to have access to their own water. And of course this will in turn form a major argument for the formation of Khalistan. Could you talk us through how riparian rights have been abused, have been removed from the Sikh community throughout, actually since 1947?
So what India wants to do, take control of Punjab waters and Punjab hydropower. So in order to do that, they basically denied the state of Punjab their riparian rights. However, the Indian Constitution says the riparian rights should be upheld. So what India has done, India has given the riparian rights to the adjoining state of Haryana, where the Yamuna water is under control of that state, and other states control their water. But in Punjab, the water is controlled by Indian government. So Indian government violates its own constitution, and the Indian government is also violating the international law of riparian rights. So two things. So India is violating two laws, its own riparian right and the international riparian rights. So where would people of Punjab go? If their water is taken out, if the electricity is taken out, and that's their natural resource, that's unconstitutional. So where is Indian Constitution then? How is Indian Constitution being applied or giving rights to people? No, it does not give any rights to people of Punjab. That's why the people of Punjab want to separate from India and create an independent country of Khalistan, which it was. That's why if the people of Punjab, especially the Sikhs, they don't have religious freedom, they don't have economic freedom, they don't have political freedom. So let's talk very briefly about the political freedom. The political power in Punjab is under the direct control and grip of Indian government. Indian government applied central government rule Punjab 8 times and for 3,510 days. So why? Because if the Punjab Legislative Assembly wants to do certain things for the people of Punjab, India says, no, you cannot do that. We'll put the center rule. So politically, it's under the control of Indian government. Economically, the riparian rights are being violated. Our electricity is being drained, and in Punjab is sold highly polluting, cancer-causing, coal-burning furnaces are being have been installed. So, and we want to touch one more time on the language. So, Indian government denied the Punjabi language as sole language of Punjab. And the second thing was, recently in Jammu Kashmir in year 2020, they promulgated a Jammu and Kashmir language law in which they say that Punjabi is not one of the official languages in Jammu and Kashmir. Punjabi is spoken in many adjoining areas, Punjab, Haryana, Delhi, Uttar Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh. All these people, there are a lot of Punjabi speaking people, but they took Punjabi out of the J&K language bill. So my summary is that people of Punjab, we are trying to make them realize, particularly the Sikhs, you don't have political rights, you don't have religious rights, you don't have language rights. Your religious institutions are attacked, your economy is attacked. But let me add one more line. So now the Sikhs are agitating for their minimum support price, MSP. So India is not giving Punjab the MSP. But at the same time, India is taking away water, India is taking away electricity, India is controlling the grain prices, and India is controlling the fertilizer prices. That's unconstitutional. When they are taking our water away, when they're taking the electricity away, and electricity board, control board is under Indian government administration. Every which way, the people of Punjab have to realize they have absolutely no rights. So what they can do, they can separate, they can secede by right to self-determination, the international law, and we doing that legally, democratically, and peacefully. And the heading I am trying to put in people's minds is that the Indian government denies Sikhs their constitutional rights, and even the constitution does not give all the rights it gives to other Indians.
Which beautifully summarises the absolute justification for the establishment of a new sovereign territory of Khalistan. But unfortunately, there we must leave it. But we will indeed be talking again with Dr. Sandhu soon to continue our discussion.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Sandhu, it's been an absolute pleasure as always. Thanks so much for joining us. And thank you for watching the Satluj TV podcast. We will see you next time.